And so, who and what is God? Because we have these many religions, and some of them are thousands of years old. And we have science, on the other hand, trying to dispute the existence of God. And according to spirituality, everything that exists has a spirit. In other words, the spirit is its energy, and this energy is intelligence, and that intelligence is God. Meaning that everything in existence is God with no exception, meaning that nothing but God exists. And yet we have different religions trying to explain God in their unique ways, and science trying to dispute the very existence of God. On another level, you have governments. And by the way, the word government comes from the two words govern, mental, which means mind control. And so with God being consciousness, we can actually see that the prime enemy of God is the government, which seeks to keep the minds of the people as ignorant as possible concerning this great being, which we can all become. This is due to the fact that God is consciousness and also made up of minds, and we are nature, which is the same element that God is made of. In other words, nature is a condensation of consciousness. But the point here is that everything is God and exists within God. And so the question is, why do we human beings still struggle to understand this simple truth? And because with this understanding or acceptance, if we were to know that we are God, we will gravitate towards becoming that God and thus solve all our problems. And so one would say that it is very evil of us, of others, to keep the rest of the world from knowing the truth of their identity and existence. Because from knowing who you are, you can actually operate to the peak of your abilities. But without the knowledge of self, one is locked in confusion. And so this world is some kind of a prison, a virtual reality, by the way, which we all know as a matrix. But this is even made worse by governments who seek to impose their evil will against natural laws, failing to understand that we exist within an intelligent being, which is the universe itself. And that the reason why the earth is able to produce food is because it's intelligent, meaning that the earth itself will solve its own problems because it knows what happens on its surface. This is due to the fact that we have electromagnetic fields, and these electromagnetic fields are governed by our chakras, our crown chakra, as well as mainly they are governed by all our chakras, but the most dominant being the heart chakra as well as the crown chakra, which is on our head. One being electric, the one on our heads, and the other one being magnetic. And so all our thoughts and feelings and emotions are reported back to the planet as well as the universe, because we all understand that in nature nothing gets to be wasted, and that energy can only get recycled but is never destroyed. And so the earth is aware of who are the most negative people on top of its surface and where fears reside the most, as well as panic. Because nature cannot deal with these energies which are foreign as well as are created by ignorance, or in other words, deviation. Nature will finally take care of itself by getting rid of all those who are responsible for fears. And so as a child, when I first came across nature, my first words were, "You are here also, there's no escaping you." As though I knew that I'd existed forever in other dimensions apart from this one. And the funny part is that this one seemed familiar so much that I remember the future. In fact, I remember the last time in which I was here. And that also happens to be our future due to the fact that we live in a virtual reality which presents us with linear time, whereas in reality time does not exist in frames, or exist in frames, actually. And these frames such that time is superpositioned. By that, I mean to say every event has already taken place. And position in this case would be us fine-tuning or choosing to be in a particular location or set of time frequency. By this, I'm trying to refer to the fact that we exist in a wave of intelligence or consciousness, and this wave being the current moment. And the wave comes from the past and is gravitating towards the future. But in reality, the future has already occurred, except for we are locked in this dimension of frequency, which gives us linear time. And so I was able to remember the future because, like I said, it has already taken place. But something got me very concerned about this world because instead of seeing electromagnetic fields which connect everything in existence, I could not. And these electromagnetic fields are in such a manner that they present us with a vibrating universe, one that ceases to exist, in other words, that disappears from sight to allow other dimensions to appear, and in a split second it reappears. In other words, with our minds operating at their peak, we are able to perceive simultaneously all these events and make good sense of them. But this was not the case when I first saw nature. So much that I looked into my flesh and realized that there was no light coming out of my body. And this light was supposed to come from the 7 chakras located across my spine or down my spine. And there are 7 due to the fact that they give us the 7 spectrum of light, which we all see in the rainbow or the sun. And this allows us to see without the aid of a man-made light in the form of bulbs or the sun. Basically, the sun is our collective intelligence designed to govern our wake and sleeping patterns. In other words, it functions in the same manner as the pineal gland. But the only difference here is that the sun which is there is designed to help us mortal beings whose mind operates at a low frequency, because in our natural state we are able to see with our chakras because they produce light which allow us to see even in darkness. And besides, it's not the mind that's, the eyes that see, or even the brain, it's the mind. And so when the mind is operating at its peak, it sees everything because it also knows everything. And this mind which is located in me and you is also located in everything else as one entity, such as droplets of water. When combined, they form the ocean. And so this greater entity which we all manifest is the one we know as God. And so apart from not seeing auras, as well as seeing that everything was distant from each other, thus giving us time, I knew that I was locked inside a virtual reality where time exists, and that it would be a long time before I become an adult and talk about some of the things I was born with, or things that I know, which would aid humanity to the next level of consciousness ascension. And so I knew that I live in a world where good people or people like myself get to be assassinated, where media, in this case media being the replacement of consciousness, is crowded with foolish people who are also cowardly and have no real relevance to society, because the governing principles of this world being the government, and by the way, government means mind control, meaning that it's the only institution designed by men to prevent men from ascending in consciousness. And so this government is the actual manifestation of evil. Even in the book of Revelations, the government is depicted as a beast with 7 heads, and this being the 7 institutions that govern every aspect of government. And so I was able to remember the future afterwards, after seeing that I was locked inside a virtual reality of having a physical body. And that having a physical body means that I can go through pain as well as hunger and all other limitations, meaning that I had to hide my identity until the time was perfect for me to act, when I will not be no longer afraid of any consequences. And so I remember the future, as I was saying. A time when I was being watched by my mother and went outside to play with my friends, and a huge explosion occurred towards the northwest, the direction in which in South Africa you will find the US. And a mother passing by started celebrating, saying, "Fallen, fallen, the witch Babylon has fallen," presenting the fact that there was an animosity between our people and those who had been destroyed, and this event has been always anticipated. So much that as a child I'd always been aware of the Archangel Michael, because my next event was me remembering myself visiting my bed, reading Daniel chapter 12 about the Archangel Michael, as I was reflecting on my previous lifetime. And so as a child I'd always been aware of this Michael, whom I knew as the Son of God, who was awaited by humanity because he was the messenger of the covenant, being the God who proposed our existence so that we may come and uplift our consciousness to the next level. And those next level being the reality of our existence, which is filled with joy, exploration, pleasure, abundance, and etc. So being in a world of time, physical pain, etc. was sort of like scary and disappointing to me, because I've always known beauty as well as glory. And so made my decision when I was about 4 years old to become the sacrifice of this world in order to change human DNA, thus allowing for future generations to be born with active multiple domain DNA strands, which will be functional and thus evolve in consciousness in a space of 1,000 years until we become full gods. And in this we'll experience life as it's supposed to, as it was designed to, beyond and before this physical matrix which we call life existed. And I thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy my videos and can help me ascend until I become a public figure, to deal with your politicians, your scientists, theologians, and professors, so you can see God's finest versus the world and see what will eventually give. Thank you for your time.